All right, people. We are live. I've got me a guest, as you'll see there. Subscribe to the wonderful Joe Stunner Boxing. You will not be disappointed. I actually mentioned to him ages ago that it's not out of the realms of possibility to hit 3K subs by Christmas.
Mm.
We're in the same ballpark. I'm about 320 subs off 15K. And I'm still on course to hit that by Christmas. You could easily do the same. 3K by Christmas.
2,600, I think I've got at the moment. Or a little bit
3K by Christmas, lads. 3K by Christmas. But the reason why I have Joe on here, right, is because December is a big month. We've got a big fight this weekend, next weekend, and then the big card in Saudi Arabia just before Christmas. Not to mention the new way, right? So we've got a lot of good stuff coming up. A lot of good stuff, right? The Day of Reckoning card is my personal favorite, as I'm sure it is the majority. And I want to preview this and get the thoughts of different people. You know, it'd be all well and good just have Joe's thoughts this week and then nothing else after. No. I want to get other people's thoughts and really dissect this card, talk about all the fights on it, and do that every week with a different guest up until. And I thought for the first show, I need a really good guest who I can have, a lot of back and forth with. And it's just overall a great chap. That's why I got Joe Stunner Boxing on. I thought of you. You were the first person I thought of.
You couldn't get one of them, so you got me instead, yeah.
Huh?
I said you couldn't get one of them, so you got me instead. That's great.
I'm pretty sure Ade's in the US now doing his own work. No, honestly, no, I did. The floor is on to you. I know you've been on here a few times as well, but the channel is ever growing. Some people might not know. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Joe Stunner, just a big boxing fan. Started my channel 2 and a bit years ago. Didn't think I'd get 1,000 subscribers, but I did. Now I'm on 2,600 and something. Nearly 3, getting off of 3. Yeah. I just like talking about boxing. I just like interacting with other fans. Do some previews, some reviews. Talk a little bit about the history of the fight game because I'm, not in my 20s anymore. I'm going back quite a way. I'm a big fan about reading about the history of the sport. And I just like interacting with other fans. It's that simple. So hit the subscribe button.
Hit the subscribe. The lovely Karma Serene in the chat every single time. Joe, are you in a band? I'll never forget that song you did on Gareth A. Davis. It was just perfect. It is perfect. If you've not listened to it, go to his shorts. You'll hear it. It's just, perfect.
Yeah, I've been in several bands. I've actually got a channel, Joe Stunner Music. There's a load of old stuff on there from years and years ago. I predate the internet, so a lot of my stuff was sort of re-recorded later on, and then I stuck it on YouTube 15 years ago, or whatever. But I was in a band called Nothing. I was in a band called Saint Death, and I had a music project called The Austerity Cage, which is the most recent thing I did, which was about 5, 6, 7 years ago. But there's plenty of songs on there if you want to go and have a listen.
And I'm just a guy who records videos about boxing. That's my claim to fame. And you can say that, and then you can say the band stuff as well. So you're definitely,
I do miss playing live. Like playing live music is brilliant because it's like being there at a fight. Except that, I've never been a pro boxer, but I imagine you're in the moment, and everything's happening, and it's, you sort of stand or fall by that moment that you're actually in, and you get the reaction of the crowd.
You have more big stage experience than I do. I'm still waiting for that. I'll never get to do the pro walk, but let's see if we can do something else. You never know.
Played some dives as well, believe me. The Dog and Duck in Chesterfield or wherever. But yeah, I played some nice gigs. Yeah, it's good fun.
Mate, you're not just a boxing fan. You're well traveled in a lot of ways. Now, the destination for this video is Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We want to preview this card, right? I want to preview it from start to finish, most competitive to least competitive, right? Now, I want to know your thoughts on all these, and we're going to talk about them as we go along. Now, this one might not be the least competitive, but I think it's the one fight that everyone is just kind of like meh about, which is Sanchez versus Fa. So meh, one of them didn't even turn up at the press conference.
Yeah. Well, Junior Fa, he had those back-to-back defeats. One was to Parker, a very uninspired looking Parker, which was in 2021. And that was a unanimous decision, but it was boring as hell.
It was awful.
Yeah. And then he got done in a round by Lucas Brown. You can get caught cold. It's not a big deal. but it does suggest that Farr maybe he may have some residual damage from that, mental demons or whatever. It's not nice getting caught cold.
The thing I will say about that knockout, when you say caught cold or caught with a shot you didn't see, Lucas Brown is so slow, I would imagine you'd have to wear Stevie Wonder's glasses not to see those shots coming.
Maybe he
I
just
gotta
didn't
get the
respect
Stevie
his
Wonder
power.
dig in there.
Yeah, no, I mean you're right, but maybe he just didn't respect his power. Maybe he thought,
I've been in with Parker, so I can take it.
Yeah, or he's shot the bits. What's he got left? Nothing. And he just, or maybe just had a bad day at the office, which does happen. But you know, you got to turn those negatives into positives and learn from it. And he's better start learning some serious lessons between now and 23rd, because he's in with Frank Sanchez, and I don't think anyone's picking to win.
No, he's only had one fight since then, and it's been a 4-rounder, which he won. But you know, again, a 4-rounder is not high level. Frank Sanchez is a good fighter. Is a very good fighter, very underrated fighter, a fighter that kind of, he isn't, again, this is why I think people are worried that Fa has been in fights that haven't been the most entertaining, as has Frank Sanchez. So I think people are a bit worried that we could end up in such a big card having a bit of a stinker. Do you think that's a fear, or do you think Sanchez will go in and think, look, I want to stake my claim to the world, I want to show the world what I'm all about, go in, demolition job, see you later?
I expect Sanchez to win in 4 rounds or less. And I
hope so.
He got shook early, didn't he, against Scott Alexander in the first round. So I don't think he'll be sort of reserved or reticent about that. He's in with Junior Farr. No, I think he'll put it on him. Might have a look at him in the first round and finish it between the second and the fourth. Maybe that'd be my guess.
Is that the kind of fight that you would maybe say you're probably least looking forward to on the card, in just terms of just, it doesn't really, it's just there, so to speak. It's not a mismatch necessarily, but it's not a fight that we're expecting to be competitive at the same time.
I think it would be a mismatch on most cards, but we're going to talk about another match coming up. Certain Mr. Demore.
Oh yes. Oh,
so compared to that,
let's just do that
Leonard
next.
Hearns one.
Let's just do that next, right? So Filip Hrgović, right? IBF mandatory challenger. Now, I've done a video on this, and I want to also speak briefly about this, right? Filip Hrgović is IBF mandatory challenger. Under no circumstances is he obliged to take the toughest available fight. He is not under any circumstance obliged to do it, and no one really expects him to. And I know me and Hatman had a little conversation about this in the Element group, where I said, look, I agree with you when you say he's not obliged to take difficult fights. He's not obliged to take top 15. But surely there has to be a limit you go below where you're like, that's just not acceptable. Like if Moses Atelma was announced as his next fight was going to be Mark Demore, I'd say the kid can do better than that. This is Filip Hrgović.
I'd expect Atelma to knock Demore out in between the first and the third. And Hrgović, there's no reason why this shouldn't be a 1-round fight. I agree with you. You can't go below a certain level. Otherwise, you just say, what's the point? What's the point of Filip Hrgović fighting Mark Demore? Is there what can he possibly gain out of it? Oh, well, it gains a paycheck, I suppose, which is fair enough. You know, it's prize fighting after all. But they expect us to watch this.
I said this before.
A long time.
Sorry, I said this before about this fight, right? Mark Demore is going to get a big paycheck as well. Now, look, I don't mind seeing fighters get paid, right? I genuinely don't. I don't mind seeing fighters get paid. But the question is, like, has Mark Demore even earned a big payday based upon losing to David Haye, 8 years ago? I likened it in the video I did. I likened it to someone working in the post room for 20 years, which is basically what he's done. He's been a pro 20 years and he's done nothing in those 20 years. Working in the post room for 20 years, knows nothing about the company he works for or how it's run, and then giving him a job as a director. And then wondering, oh, crap, why isn't this working? But give him a severance package and send him on his way. That's kind of what it's like.
I think he only got the job because am I right in saying he's promoted by the same people that promote Jaya Pattaya, or?
Possibly. I think so. I think Parker has dealings with them as well. And that could possibly be it, because, again, when I seen this, I was just like, Mark Demore. I remember it was rumored before the card was announced, and I was like, that's a fake rumor. There's no way you're going to put Mark Demore on the card, especially against Hrgović. That's no way. So when I see this on paper, I'm like, what the hell?
and he's 41 as well. just to sort of put the cherry on the cake. I mean, he learned to fight, didn't he? Watching YouTube.
From YouTube.
Videos. Yeah, come on, man. I mean, this is getting silly now.
In 20 years, his best result is a draw 19 years ago against Alex Leopai. That's his best result in a 4-rounder against Alex Leopai, who was, that fight with Klitschko had to go on Eurosport. That is, I don't like this fight. Don't think it should be happening. I don't see why Hrgovic couldn't take on a Charles Martin or someone like that of that level. A Kubrat Pulev, guys where they have a bit of name value, right? But they're not going to cause an upset or anything like that. At least they give you, they'll be there for a couple of rounds anyway, whereas this guy's just going to be there, see you later.
I mean, if you stuck him in, if Gerald Washington was put in with Hrgovic, you'd sort of roll your eyes and say, oh, God.
Fair enough.
Yeah, obvious knockout, but he's protecting his mandatory position. Or even Derek Chisora. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want to see Derek Chisora.
I don't want to see that.
But,
I want to see that.
But he'll put up more of a fight than Mark de Moray.
Oh, hell yeah. He lasts longer, too. Again, like, I don't like this fight. If it was someone like Moses Atelma, I would say, he's only a kid. He's still learning, but he's better than this. Not an IBF mandatory.
Yeah. Can you imagine if de Moray won?
I mean, honest to God, it would be, I couldn't even envision. There's certain things you just can't envision, and that would be one of them. Mark de Moray, mandatory for Alexander Usyk, Fury winner. Oh, yeah, they are both going to jump at that fight.
Well, put it this way, Mark de Moray.
Usyk could fight him. Usyk could have a hard fight with Fury, win. Fury could invoke the rematch clause, and Usyk will say, I'll fight de Moray next week and finish him off, and then boom, I'll fight Fury in 3 months.
Yeah. But I would, if Mark de Moray beat Filip Hrgovic, that would be a bigger upset to me than if Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson or Donald Curry beating
Lloyd Honeyghan.
Lloyd Honeyghan beating or Stracie beating Napoli. I mean, it'd be a bigger upset than any of those.
100%.
Yeah.
110%. I mean, at least with someone like Buster Douglas, there was talent there. There's anything that would, but de Moray.
I mean, I remember a couple of people before the Douglas fight saying, theoretically, Douglas has got a chance of giving Tyson problems. They kind of stopped short of saying he was. I mean, Mickey Duff was one of them. Said Buster Douglas will give Mike Tyson problems, but because he did have talent.
Oh yeah, he beat Oliver McCall soundly.
Oh yeah,
soundly beat him.
Yeah, but Mark de Moray wouldn't win an area title in Britain.
No, I mean Solomon Dacus, who is just I'd be picking him handily over Mark de Moray.
Yeah, easy. Yeah. Johnny Fisher,
Fisher, all these. This to me is just no. This I don't like this fight at all. Right? I don't want to labor the point, but I don't like this fight. And I think me and you are both saying it's a case of in the first round, kind of what minute of the first round. You have a 1 in 3 chance of getting it.
Yeah, the moment he gets clipped, he's over, I think.
See you later. Bye-bye.
No disrespect to the man. I mean, he's got the guts to get in the ring with him. So, but at the same time, come on, from a spectacle point of view, no.
If there, I'm sorry, I know I have to ask this, right? But is there a risk? Because I always say that, certain referees can stop fights too early, and you have to give a fighter a chance sometimes, especially if it's near the end of the round. To say, oh no, this, that, and the other. But at the same time, they're not. The referees have your fighters hurt and all that, whatever. But if you're talking about gross mismatches, are they not as dangerous? If it's a really big gross mismatch that the opponent could get seriously hurt, is that not something you could maybe argue with?
If the guy's durable, yes. But if the guy goes over and is stopped instantly, which I think is going to happen with de Moray,
most likely.
I think there's. I mean, it's like I mentioned Chisora. If you put Chisora in with Hrgovic, he's going to stand and take a beating. That's extremely dangerous. With de Moray, the moment he gets hit, he's either going to be out cold or he's going to be so discombobulated, the towel's going to come in or something. So it's probably less dangerous.
Less dangerous if he was completely no hope, but he had an iron, like Triple G chin. Dangerous. Yeah. Dangerous. Yeah. We'll move on from that one. Now, I see people mentioning Opataya, and listen, right? Marcellus Wilder versus the Opataya Zora winner. I would comfortably pick Jake Paul over Marcellus Wilder. comfortably. I wouldn't even hesitate. I mean, that boy is something else. He really is.
Yeah.
Huh?
No chin whatsoever. Marcellus.
Amongst other things he said and done, that boy is just something else. He really is. He really is. Marcellus Wilder is like a bit like a bird, the gift that keeps on giving, but in a not as entertaining way. In the case of, you look at him like that and you're like, oh, when is it gonna? Oh, there it is. Right. How long before PBC wiped this from the internet?
Is he even fighting anymore, though?
I don't think so. He lost to some journeyman last year.
Yeah.
He's not fought since then. I mean, for his own safety, best he doesn't.
Yeah.
For his own safety.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right. Jake Paul would beat him. Yeah.
Oh, easily. Yeah. Easily. Like, he's like, right, I lost to Fury, but now I'm going to fight Wilder.
Tommy Fury would probably knock him out.
He'd have a field day with him. KSI probably knock him out. Seriously, KSI has more talent. I mean, that guy is made for misfits. He would fit just right well in that world, actually.
Yeah.
In misfits.
Yeah.
He really would, truth be told. But in terms of Jay Opetaia, Elizara, now, listen, again, right, another fight that on paper I think is a mismatch, because Elizara I have seen a few times, and most notably he went life and death. It was a very good fight, don't get me wrong, a very good fight with Dex Spellman. He was on a Queensbury show last year. Very good fight, but Dex Spellman is English level, and he was a light heavyweight, career light heavyweight. He moved up for that fight.
Yes. Yeah.
He shouldn't be in with Jay Opetaia. And Jay Opetaia just had a very easy fight in September against Jordan Thompson. I mean, it's a flip of a coin, really, without seeing the fight. Is this more competitive or less competitive? But it's on the same kind of level.
Yeah, it is. See, I'm someone that thought Jordan Thompson might give Opetaia a couple of problems early on because.
Oh no.
Because let me explain why. Because he's extremely big, and Opetaia isn't the biggest of cruisers, and also Opetaia was coming off that double fracture on the jaw, and there were question marks over Opetaia, not his heart or anything. I actually proved that against Brightus, but I did think, okay, again, feasibly, Jordan Thompson, if he fights the fight of his life, and Opetaia is still feeling the effects of the Brightus fight, maybe it could be competitive. It obviously wasn't. He just blew him out of the water. Totally, a small man beating the crap out of a guy who's clearly much bigger shows you that if you've got the talent, size. I mean, there are weight divisions for a reason, as the saying goes, but nevertheless, size needn't matter that much. Not relatively speaking. As far as Elizara goes, I think you're right. It's about the same. I see Opetaia smashing Zorro to bits, to be honest with you.
Do you think for Jay Opetaia that's what you really, envision? Like, I know he's going to get he probably was well paid for that for his last fight, and probably well paid for this. But do you think that he was thinking, all right, I'm going to be defending my title against, guys who are not even proven at British level? Do you think he thought that would really be what he'd be doing in 2023? I know Myers Brightus is mandatory, so he'll have to do that fight next year at some point. But, having fights like this, does that even stand you in good stead for a Myers Brightus who is still useful?
Probably not, but I know they've Opetaia and his the name escapes me of his promotional company, but they've signed a joint deal with Matchroom, haven't they?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So I suppose that comes into it, and it's sort of win-win for Zorro, because even if he gets beaten let's say he lasts into the 6th and gets stopped on his feet, no one's going to be surprised, and he can say, well, it was a good experience. Mm-hmm. I know he's 31 now, Zorro, but he can at least say, yeah, I was there on the big stage and I've learned from it and blah, blah, blah.
He doesn't even sound the most confident, because do you remember when they asked him in the press conference, do you see any weakness? The first thing he is, no.
Yeah.
It's like, you could at least lie and say, yeah, but I won't tell, and at least, say, all right, it's just, do you see any weakness? No.
Well, that can work two ways. I mean, he could, by saying, no, I'm up against it here, I mean, that can focus his mind. He now knows he's got to walk through fire. And we give him fire, you would imagine. But if he was to lie, who would he be lying to? No one would believe him. He'd just be lying to himself. So, it can work both ways.
It could work both ways. Prediction, mine would be, it's obviously going to be a Jay Opetaia win. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he will last into the 4th or 5th round.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to go on a limb and say he'd probably do a bit better than Thompson, but not much better.
Also, I think this is Opetaia's second fight since the double fracture, and he's coming. They're back to back pretty quick, so he might think, okay, subconsciously it might be in his mind. Well, I handled Thompson easily. This is going to be no different. So he might come in a little bit less than focused. Mm-hmm. Yeah, between I'd say 4, 5, 6 rounds, 4, 5, 6.
I reckon he'll do a little bit. And you never know. We might see a more competitive fight. You never know. You might have a moment or two where you're like, oh, all right, yeah, that's all right, that's something. So that's Jai Opetaia versus Elizarra. Now, this fight right here is, I love watching Arslan Makhmudov. I do. The one thing I worry about, he's getting up there in age, 34, and he's in there against Adja Kabayel. Now, Kabayel beat Chisora. Lord, it was 7 years. It's a quick 7 years. It's been 7 years, but he has done literally nothing since then. I mean, like, the fight wasn't great, but at least you could do. That was Chisora when he was, still, he hadn't had over 10 losses. And you're like, you've done nothing since then.
Yeah, his career has totally stagnated. I mean, he's been European champion.
Yeah.
He's beat, was it Andrei Rudenko, I think it was, and also
Rudenko and someone else. I can't remember now. I'll tell you exactly. I have his box rec opened. Kevin Johnson, Pavel Sauer. I mean, he's literally fighting Rajvan, someone else, not Kajanu. I mean, he's literally fought the kind of guys you would be expecting young Moses Atelma to be fighting.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of years.
A couple of years ago, he went the 12-round distance with Kevin Johnson. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of stagnated totally. And it was, 32, 33 maybe?
Maybe in his early 30s, yeah, he would be about that. That's a worry going into a fight like this, that, in 7 years, your level has been so low. And it's not even that you could say, well, your level's been low, but you've been active. I mean, you're looking at once-a-year jobs here against journeymen.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Pavel Sauer one was a one-rounder, wasn't it?
I will tell you now.
I think they both got one-round wins over
Pavel Sauer. Yeah. But loads of people have one-round wins over Pavel Sauer.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be a worry if you're going rounds with him.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, if you stick him in with Moses Atelma, you'd expect Atelma to knock him flat in a couple of rounds.
It shows how highly we rate him. We kind of use him as the yardstick for all these guys.
He's a very good prospect. I mean, he's a southpaw as well, and sometimes it's how you get your work done. Even though that one at the weekend was awful.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
But he was a late replacement. How are you going to find rounds for the kid? You got to go and get Kevin Johnson or someone like that. Maybe take him half a dozen rounds.
In terms of this fight right here, I'm going to go with Marsbet Makhmudov to win with knockout. Do you think it's going to go the distance, or do you think we're seeing knockout? Because we don't really, to be fair, we don't really know how good Kabayel's chin is, because it's never really been tested, really. We'll soon find out.
Makhmudov's got nearly all knockouts on his win column, I think.
Carlos Takam, the only guy taking the distance.
Okay. And this is a 10-rounder? I'm not
sure. Doesn't say. Doesn't give the rounds. I would assume it will be a 10 or 12. I'd probably be a 12-rounder, because Makhmudov is highly rated by the WBC, and he'll probably be looking to get this as a ranking fight, because Kabayel is ranked as well as the WBC.
Yeah. And Kabayel, because someone's been stagnant for so long, again, it could work both ways. I mean, we're not even sure how good he can be. He might see this as his golden opportunity. He might have trained like a demon. He may be full of self-belief. We just don't know. But yeah, I would pick Makhmudov to win. I would probably say maybe about an 8-round stoppage.
Gun to your head, mismatch or competitive fight?
It's going to be, I think, for as long as it lasts, Kabayel will make Makhmudov earn the rounds, but Makhmudov will win most of the rounds.
It won't be one of these fights where it's just a sustained beat, and you think that he'll be in it, but just there'll only be one guy who really is dominating. So
yeah, Makhmudov will again, he'll dominate, but he won't. I think Kabayel will probably have enough left he'll have enough to make him earn the win, if you know what I mean. But I do see Makhmudov stopping him in about 8 rounds.
That's kind of the first half of it. I reckon that's how it's going to be. That's the first half of the card, how they'll do it. We're into the second half, the business end, right? I can't
Right.
wait to hear your thoughts on not the next fight, not the fight we're talking about now, the one after, because I just know what we're going to get with that one. But Bivol versus Lyndon Archer. Now, here's my stance on this fight, right? Lyndon Archer, who you really didn't have anybody else at light heavyweight. If you think about it logically, you really didn't have anybody else. But has Lyndon Archer stopped his last opponent? But he looked so vulnerable in there.
Yeah.
Bivol hasn't got a knockout in over 5 years. I reckon this will be his first knockout.
Yeah, I was about to say something. Look, this is a cash out of Lyndon.
Oh yeah.
Because Lyndon isn't that young anymore. I think he's something like 31, 32. Good fighter, good domestic level fighter, European level maybe, but he's got some vulnerabilities. And we saw him in the last fight. I mean, he kind of pulled it out of the fire, didn't he, with that stoppage? But that's kind of out of the blue.
It was very out of the blue.
Yeah, and Bivol, too skillful, over 12. Yeah, I'd expect it might even be a corner retirement. But I'd expect Bivol to stop him up in about, again, 8, 9, 10, those sort of rounds.
I think you're right. I think it's going to be something like that as well. I think that Bivol has been out of the ring for over a year now, so he's going to be hungry to impress as well, especially on a card like this. And I think, again, his last fight was Zordo Ramirez. Zordo Ramirez would eat Lyndon Archer for breakfast, in my opinion.
Yeah, that would be. Actually, I think Ramirez would stop Lyndon Archer quicker than Bivol. It's only because of the style.
Style is different, but you're exactly right.
Yeah, but of course, skills pay the bills, as they say, and I think Bivol will completely outbox Arthur. Arthur won't get near him. He'll hang tough, and I think that the corner I'm going to go for a corner retirement on that one.
Yeah. I think something similar. That yard loss really damaged him, didn't it?
Yeah.
Physically and mentally. You won the fight the first time around, and then it just not be competitive the second time, based off of nothing. It's not like you had, a life and death fight in between. I'd say that probably damaged him mentally as well as physically.
Do you know what else I think damaged him was the fact that Warren totally favoured Yard. And the fact that Arthur had won the first fight and Warren was so eager to get them back in the ring so that Yard could, normal service was resumed. Arthur was like, well, you're my promoter,
He's not even shy, Frank. At least with Eddie, he does have his favourites, but he's a lot more diplomatic, for want of a better word, about how he is. Whereas Warren, it's like, you're my favourite. But I won, Frank. I'm signed by you.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're still my favourite.
Well, it's like Dubois and Joyce, isn't it? I mean, okay, Joyce got the two Zhang fights, but maybe Warren was trying to cash him out. I don't know. It's a difficult one. It's like, change the subject slightly, just momentarily. But Ryan Garcia at the weekend, that there's been friction between him and Oscar De La Hoya. Mm-hmm. Now, I was quite impressed with the fact that he dealt with all of that and still got in the ring and did the business, even though he didn't look great. Nevertheless, he came away with a win. When your promoter's against you, they're meant to be sticking up for you, and they're just discarding you or almost want you to lose, that can affect you a great deal. And I think that affected Lyndon Arthur with the Frank Warren situation.
I think so. And again, that's Frank Warren in a nutshell. It's fair to say that, like, he literally, if he doesn't want you, if he has you signed, but he doesn't want you, you'll see some strange fights get made.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, why are you even doing that? And then he'll throw you to one side. See you later. Happy days. That is where, again, with Eddie Hearn, at least he's a bit more diplomatic about it. If the guy he didn't think will win wins, at least he'll do something for them. He might not be. He might be like, "Oh, damn it! I wish the other guy would have won." But I'll still. Scott Fitzgerald, when he beat Anthony Fowler, Fowler was Hearn's guy. But what did Hearn do? He didn't just chuck Fitzgerald. Obviously, had his own issues, but he was like, "All right, well, you won, so let's work with you. Let's see what we can do."
He actually gave Fitzgerald
a crack at Cheeseman, British title.
Yeah, and I think when Fitzgerald was sort of, let's just say, he shelved his habits for a little while, he gave him a middleweight fight.
He did. And that was, again, he wasn't the guy they thought. He wasn't the fighter he truthfully wanted to win. But if that was Warren, it'd be just like, make the rematch, and if you lose, see you later.
Yeah.
That's Warren in a nutshell. We've got a Warren fighter to preview next before we have the two big cards. Now, this fight here is not even going to be co-main, but it could top a Queensbury bill No questions asked, really. Daniel Dubois versus Jarrell Miller. Haha. Now, listen, right? I have to say, I am looking forward to this fight. It's probably the fight I'm looking forward to the most, just from a styles point of view, everything. I am really genuinely looking forward to this fight. I know that you sort of don't like Jarrell Miller, to say the least.
Well, the phrase that speaks to mind is guilty pleasure, isn't it, this fight? Because you're quite right.
It is.
I mean, stylistically, you put them together and you've got yourself a good little... You've got two big heavyweight lumps knocking chunks out of each other. No, I have made no secret of the fact I don't think Miller should be in the sport anymore.
Objectively looking at it, though,
yeah,
without feelings out of the equation,
yeah,
it's a fight that Miller, I would make him favourite.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've said this in my own videos. How do we know who the real Jarrell Miller is? Because he's obviously juiced up to the eyeballs, you know, for most of his career.
I don't know if you've ever seen Proper Boxing's recent video on Jarrell Miller, and he shows an image of him in the kickboxing days. And it's actually crazy to look at. Now, this was when he was popped into kickboxing. And you actually look and you think, that's not the same person. He's a lot leaner. Muscles are defined. His arms look crazy long. And you're like, that's the same Jarrell Miller who we see in the ring, you know, looking absolutely tree trunks of arms. And you're like, they can't be the same person. And you're thinking, what the hell is he on? And he touched on something interesting, you know, those substances that he used will make, you know, your dare go out. And Jarrell Miller, I mean, like, you know, he's putting some of those women to shame.
Well, this is my point. We don't know anything. I don't know anything. I can't comment on Jarrell Miller as a clean athlete because I don't remember ever seeing him as a clean athlete. Now, if he comes in juiced up to the eyeballs, he'll beat Daniel Dubois.
Oh yeah.
But because Dubois, we know that he's got, you know, a certain fragility in his psyche, and he's good at what he does. He hits hard, but if you're zapped, you know, on all sorts of PEDs, you can take a good punch.
Yeah,
I remember. I'm going back a long way. Tommy Hearns fighting James Kinchin, and he was beating the crap out of Kinchin, and Kinchin was like, "Yeah, whatever." Well, it wasn't a PED; it was something that he'd been sniffing between rounds. But you know, it doesn't make this guy is. You call him Big Pharma on your videos. You're quite right, because this guy's had more needles stuck, more. Excuse me, my language, more pricks in him than
Piers Morgan.
Go for it. You know, I mean, this is all IV stuff. This isn't just popping a few pills or eating too many eggs. So who is he? Who is Jarrell Miller? Now, if pushing aside the ethical side of things, yeah, it might be a great punch up with Dubois. Probably will be. But the last time I saw Miller, he looked like, I mean, initially he was looking like, you know, a giant condom stuffed with big walnuts. And then he ended up looking like a melted chocolate sundae. So now I'm presuming that the fact that it was all flab means he wasn't doing a PED cycle. What's he going to look like now? I don't know.
There's one thing, right? And I don't know if people have ever seen this, right? When you look at Jarrell Miller's box rec, right? I reckon this was the start of it, right? Because I'll tell you this right here. So he fought a guy in the 19th of December 2012, right? And then exactly 1 month to the day later, he fought Joey DeWaco. And he drew that fight because he lost points for holds. And so the fight ended up being a draw. Right? Now, in 1 month, 30 days, he went from 242 pounds to 286 pounds. How is that even possible? 44 pounds in a month. And you're supposed to be training. How do you do that? That's what, 3 stone in a month. That's not possible.
What did his physique look like when he put on that weight? I bet there wasn't a lot of fat on him, but it was all muscle, wasn't it?
He had a little bit of kind of, what would you call it? Like, not even a pot belly, but you know when just like someone has like kind of loose fat down around the belly, but you could see definition in his chest, like his chest had definitely, I thought I'd unplugged the headset there. His chest had definition in it, and obviously it doesn't now.
Yeah. I can't remember what the first fight I ever saw him in was. It might have been something like Fred Cassie or
Fred
something like
Cassie was
that.
my first fight watching him. I
Yeah.
was like, this guy just keeps throwing punches.
Yeah, like, how can someone that big? Well, then of course, you know, we the penny drops and you think, okay. And
Do
Gerald
you think that there will be serious VADA testing for this fight?
I hope so. It wouldn't surprise me if he got popped again. I mean, the guy is. I mean, as I've said before, I've spent years working with people who are drug addicts, and we tend to think of drug addicts as being, you know, heroin addicts or crack addicts or whatever. You can be addicted to PEDs. There's no addiction is a mindset. It's not a substance. You can be addicted to eating too many cream cakes. Now, Gerald Miller, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me if he was addicted to PEDs. To, you know, he had some sort of body dysmorphia, and he takes the PEDs to sort of restructure his physique because he feels he absolutely has to do that. Otherwise, his life is not complete. And it wouldn't surprise me if he got nicked again.
Do you remember Hatman a couple of years ago made a video on Jarrell Miller? And he said that there was a rumor going around that he sparred Tyson Fury years prior, right, to us really knowing about him, and that he was kicked out of Fury's camp because he just kept getting dropped. And he never denied those claims.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that was true and he thought, I can't let that happen to me again. And that was where it became, it's almost like he's the demons of that. That's why I was like, I need to keep, you know, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know. I do remember the rumor that he was knocked down several times by Fury, and people were saying, well, that's why whenever you see him interviewed, he'll slag everyone off, but he won't slag Tyson Fury off because he knows.
That's the interesting thing, isn't it? He never does. He always, everyone bar Fury. He won't mention Fury. Yeah,
it's possible. It's possible, but I would guess that his PED use predated that. It may have caused him
back to kickboxing.
When was he a kickboxer? How far back were we going?
Oh, I think he was doing them both at the same time. Well, one thing I like about BoxRec is it does tell you when they had. So he was kickboxing up until 2014.
Oh.
2014. So he was doing both simultaneously at the same time.
Because he's in his mid-30s now, isn't he, Miller?
35, 36, yeah.
Okay, so let's say he's been doing PEDs for 10 years, for sake of argument. That's 10 years of abuse on your body.
Yeah,
you know,
because people don't talk about internally what it does.
Yes, all the organs, all the stress on your organs. I mean, we all have a natural body weight for a reason. And that's because, you know, everything from our ligaments to our heart or organs, you know, that's why to be at your optimum weight is healthiest, because you're being kindest to your organs. If this guy's been carrying, you know, God knows how much excess bulk around and fighting in kickboxing and boxing, he hasn't done his heart any good. He hasn't done his, you know, it's probably not years off his life.
Oh, I'd imagine. You know, you hear about people, you know, who've abused, you know, certain substances like that over the years, especially like in wrestling and stuff like that. You hear all these types of stories, and they're 65 gone, just like that.
Yeah.
And you can say all it is down to is just taking, you know, you look good for 20 years, and then, you know, your body said, well, that's me done.
Yeah.
That's literally it.
The most famous, what's his name? Bob someone, I can't remember his bloody name. I did a video on him as well. A light heavyweight from the late 60s, early 70s.
Foster?
No. He actually, this guy actually beat Foster twice. Why can't I remember his name? This is what happens when you get older. You forget the obvious one. But no, he very famously, he fought George Foreman, and his record was something like, I'm doing this off memory, it was like 3 wins and 11 defeats or something. And then he went on this enormous streak where he was knocking people out left, right, and centre, and including Bob Foster. He knocked out Bob Foster, for God's sake. And he ended up having both his legs amputated when he was in his 40s. He had the respiratory system of an 80-year-old when he was in his late 40s, and he died young. But those were the days when you were taking PEDs, you didn't even know what they were, what they did to you.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were legal because people didn't know what they were. But, you know.
Taking all that out of the equation, we look at this fight. Let's say we have a clean Jarrell Miller, right? That's a big if. Let's say we have a clean Jarrell Miller. And let's say he is, right, we'll go with Miller 2019, right? Let's say he is 60% of that Miller. He can't quite keep the work rate up. He still takes a decent shot, and he can work reasonably hard, right? For me, stylistically, that's something that Daniel Dubois is not going to like. because
Yeah,
he strikes me as someone who, if you did that to him, he would capitulate pretty quick. But at the same time,
60% of what he was. Yeah,
60%. But at the same time, who's the biggest puncher? Lucas Brown might even be the biggest puncher Miller's been in there with. Now, Lucas Brown, as I said earlier, his shots are so slow. I mean, speed guns will be like giving you tickets for the speed of those things because they're so slow. You're saying that's actually dangerous to yourself throwing them that slow. You're not going to struggle to see them. Dubois is not the quickest heavyweight, but he's quicker than that, and he hits very hard.
Again, this is only guesswork. Let's say that a clean Miller is, like you say, 60% of what he was 5 years ago.
I think that's enough.
Yeah, it might be. I'd be interested to see the punch resistance and the engine over. Again, is this a 10 or 12? I think it's a 12 rounder.
It's a 12 rounder, yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
yeah, 12 rounds it is.
But then Dubois, you could argue he has stamina issues. Yeah, I make it 50, I guess 50-50. Maybe a little bit slightly towards Miller. 55.
Are you looking forward to it? As a fan, take everything out of it. As a fan, I am. I've no problem admitting it.
It's a weird sort of curio because I've got to be honest, I am curious to see what Miller turns up and what he looks like if he's supposedly clean, and hopefully they will do VADA testing. But if he is clean, I'm curious to see just how good or bad a clean Jarrell Miller is. You're quite right. Pushing all the ethical stuff aside, it might be a brilliant fight. You just don't know. And if that's all,
the one I'm looking forward to most. That's the thing, it really is.
Well, it could end up being the fight of the night. You just don't know, do you? Yeah, it's perfectly feasible. But it would be interesting to see how Miller takes a good wallop from Dubois, because I think we know that if Miller hits Dubois cleanly, he's going to hurt him, and Dubois is going to start thinking. Whereas if Dubois hits Miller cleanly, and he is off the naughtiness, then that'll be interesting to see as well.
I love the way at the press conference, Miller straight away, as soon as they talk to him, the loud mouth and giving it all. And Daniel Dubois, it's like, mate, that's just the wrong person to do trash talking to, because you'll just get nothing out of him at the best of times. Even, Frank Warren, what do you have to say? Huh? It's like, Manuel out of Faulty Towers. What do you have to say? Yeah. What do you have to say? He insulted you. He insult. Yes, he insult. What do you have to say? Hi, insult.
yeah.
That's what Dubois is like.
Apparently, Daniel Dubois has a very attractive girlfriend.
I've seen that.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
Lads listening who are single, there is hope for you yet.
Yes.
You think you lack charisma? Dubois can do it. Yeah. All joking aside from Dubois, if he wins, right, that puts him back in the title scene. I think that puts him at least in the conversation, because it's a win over Jarrell Miller.
But there again, if Miller wins, which is perfectly possible, it puts him in the picture, and that's the problem. That is the in a nutshell where I have a problem with the fight, with him fighting, because he is only one fight away from being somewhere in no shape or form does he deserve to be. In terms of it being a good fight, yeah, I think you may be right. Although, having said that, it could be a clutch fest. You just don't know, do you? You
don't know. It could very well be, but I suspect that will be fight night. I just have that feeling it will be.
I'll do a review of it. I mean,
I will. I'll be watching along, and I'll be.
I had some clown in one of my comment sections saying, "You've been slagging off Saudi Arabia and all the sort of sports washing that goes on, and you did it, 10 or 11 videos about." Well, of course I did. It's a boxing channel. Just because I don't agree with something morally doesn't mean I'm not going to cover the sport. People want to know about these things. It's
the whole point of having a channel.
Yes.
If you said I don't want to hear about this or I don't do this, well, we wouldn't talk about anything, would we?
Exactly. I wouldn't. I mean, I don't like Frank Warren. I don't like Eddie Hearn particularly, but I'm going to cover their fighters because this is a boxing channel. You don't have to morally agree with anything.
That's exactly it, and yet people are still watching.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah. We get to the two main events, right? Now, let's get to Deontay Wilder, Joseph Parker. I like it. I do.
Fine.
There's question marks about Parker. He looked very bad in that fight against Jack Massey, who's a career cruiserweight. He didn't look good in that fight. His next 2 fights, he looked better. But again, they were against very low level, not too durable opponents. Deontay Wilder, we know what he brings to the table in terms of punching power, but like we seen him for 2 minutes against Robert Helenius last year, and that's it. We really have a bit of an unknown quantity in terms of where he's at, in terms of physically. You know, mentally, Deontay Wilder, I know this is going to sound kind of harsh, but like in one sense, he's not switched on enough to really overthink from the 2 Fury fights. As far as he's concerned, that Fury cheated, so I'm still unbeaten. So in terms of overthink, he's not going to do that. But physically, he was in 2 car crashes, basically.
Yes.
In those 2 fights, what the damage he done. He's 38 years old. We don't know how he's going to be physically if this fight goes long.
No, we don't. But the thing about Deontay Wilder is, if you push aside all the nonsense he talks, like about all the conspiracy theory crap about how Fury cheated the first 2 times,
and how Eddie Hearn protected Joshua. Oh yeah, put him in with Klitschko after a year after winning the title. That's protected him.
Yeah. If you push aside all that rubbish, Deontay Wilder is a fighting man. I mean, the amount of guts he showed in taking those beatings against Fury, and he was trying to get up, right at the end.
He didn't want those fights stopped.
No, he didn't want the fight stopped. And this is something that I can only but respect, because this is the type of fighter who needs to be protected from himself. Now, having said that, with Parker, a lot of people haven't mentioned this, but if you look at the Joyce fight, he also took a beating. Even though he got knocked out in the end, but he took a pretty good beating without even thinking of quitting. And he actually did have little periods in certain rounds, in middle rounds, where he wasn't doing too badly. And because the early rounds against Joyce, I thought this guy's getting knocked out within 3 or 4 or 5 rounds, but he actually came back and he's trying to win. Even at the end, he was trying to win when he got knocked out. So if Parker can get through the early rounds, and we all know Deontay Wilder's got this one-trick pony in one sense, because he's got the big right hand and not a great deal else. But although his jab isn't too bad when he chooses to use it.
No, it's underrated.
It's an underrated jab. But if he can get through the early rounds, I think Parker's got a chance here. And I think he'll be up for this one, because he knows one mistake and Wilder will take your head off.
I know. My worry with Parker is he's doing something now that I don't like seeing in fighters. Joseph Parker, I've watched him for 10 years more. Long time. And I always said that him in the 230s is his best weight.
Yeah.
Now, his last 2 fights, he's come in heavy. His last fight, he was over 250.
Yeah.
And he was in there with not particularly good fighters, but he looked devastating against them. And I worry, is he going to look and think, oh, I put on all this weight, now I'm looking devastating. Well, you could have done that at 230 and looked devastating against Simon Keane. And does he think bigger is better? Because he did that against Joe Joyce. And I said at the time, oh, he's going to get knocked out. And he did, because he came in too heavy. He's not got the quickest feet in the world. I know he's a fast-ish heavyweight, but fast at a certain weight. When you go too heavy, everything else slows down. And I worry he's going to come in too heavy, be a bit too slow, a bit too static, and Deontay Wilder is just going to have an easy target. Yeah,
that's possible. I think the weight thing is, a lot of it's Andy Lee, because Andy Lee is part of the Fury camp and they like their fighters coming in big. And I think the idea is that the punch resistance is improved somehow.
Well, I always laugh at that statement, because you hear fighters who always say, oh, well, I'm a heavyweight, but like I went from 250 down to 230 and I felt weak. Well, it's like, yeah, well, chances are you went into camp 270 and you went down to 230. Yes. Of course, you're going to feel flipping weak. But if you actually stayed in shape, you'd probably feel even stronger.
Yeah. Inevitably, your body needs time to adjust to any weight, even if you're on a basic diet. But I don't know. Let's put it this way. Parker's been quite heavy for a couple of years now. So maybe his body has adjusted to that extra weight. Now, as far as your footwork's concerned, let's not forget Derek Chisora floored him. Not the headbutt one. The second one was a legitimate knockdown, I think. But maybe now he's settled into that way. Again, he's going to... I mean, Wilder's right hand, you can... snap of the fingers and the fight can be over. So I
like
do
watching.
worry about that early on. But if he can get Wilder into 5th round, 6th round, then maybe it'll get interesting. Because, like you say, Wilder, 2.5 years out, apart from the Helenius fight, and he's 38 now, and we don't know how much those beatings took out of him from Fury.
We're just assuming he'll be the same. It's a bit like you with Miller. We're just assuming he'll be a particular way, but we don't fully know that. At least with Joshua, yeah, he's not looked amazing, but at least we've seen him to be able to gauge where he's at. With Wilder, it's like we're almost looking at him pre-Fury and thinking like, oh, it's the Wilder with the book. But it's like, we haven't really, like, 2 minutes in the ring against the Helenius is not going to tell us where you're at.
No.
This will against Parker.
For all we know, Wilder could be a shock fighter. He could get in there and look absolutely terrible. But they say the last thing that disappears is you punch. And he does hit hard. But it'll be interesting to see the tactics that Wilder adopts. Because if you look at something like, I know it didn't last long, but the Dominic Breazeale fight.
Oh, yeah.
Breazeale came at him, was looking for it. He actually had
Wilder looking. He stunned him into the corner, yeah. Not long before the knockout.
Yeah, a little bit discombobulated, and then suddenly, bang, it's all over. Yeah. But this is what makes it fascinating. I mean, I think this is a really good matchup. A lot of people have said, oh, it's boring, Wilder versus Parker. It's an easy one for Wilder and all that. No, I think this is a really intriguing matchup.
No, I think it is intriguing. And one thing I think is making it more intriguing for me is the fact that Wilder is doing something that I don't like seeing fighters do. Talk about your next opponent before getting the work in front of you done. He's talking about Joshua. You haven't fought Parker yet. Fight him, then talk about Joshua.
Yeah. And he's running out of time, probably. He thinks I'm 38 now. Well, with him, you never know, do you, with Wilder, because he's so sort of delusional. He probably thinks he's still 22. But, that's a factor. Whereas Parker's been quiet, hasn't he? He's been sort of
just going about the motions.
Is the best way to be.
Going through the motions. That's all he's been doing. And maybe because he thinks he's in Team Fury, Tyson is beating him, he'll give me some tricks.
Maybe.
Subconsciously, maybe he's thinking, well, I'm with the man who beat the man. Very different man is Tyson Fury to Joe Parker. Very different. For all his flaws, he does have a lot more dog in him than Parker ever will.
Yeah.
We get then, last but not least, I've heard rumors that it's a flip of a coin who's going to be the main event. But let's just say it's Joshua versus Otto, who won the Lotto Valeen. I like this fight. I really do. Right? I think it could possibly run the risk of being a bit of a stinker, but I could also see the possibility that this could really catch fire real quick and be a very good fight. It's definitely the best opponent Joshua's fought this year out of the other two. Right? Even if he'd fought Dylan White, you could argue Otto Valeen at this point in his career is actually probably a better opponent than Dylan White at this point. Not overall, but just right now.
Yeah.
I think the Valeen has been active. He fought Kasiev only just September, so it's not like he's been inactive or anything like that. He's highly ranked. He's only lost to Tyson Fury. He was game in that fight. He's a southpaw. He wraps more at Kasiev, who's never shown a bad chin, so there might be a bit of pop there. It's subtle, but there might be. It's a really good fight, and Joshua is a fighter who, for me, I still think is questioning everything, is second guessing a lot, is overthinking. By his own admission, he's a chronic overthinker. And now he's got Ben Davison in his corner. Now, before we go, I like Ben Davis as a trainer. I think he's very good and people give him unnecessary amounts of grief.
Yeah.
But Joshua is not Tyson Fury in a sense of he can just switch from one trainer to another and boom, instant results. Joshua is not that type of guy.
Yeah.
And I do worry, are you doing it too soon for a fight? If you'd have gone to Ben Davison for the Robert Helenius fight and then this, I'd be saying, all right, well, I like you with Derek James, but okay. Just now going to Ben, I know he's been in camp, but and he started camp with Derek James, which is even stranger for me. Because he was in Texas a couple of weeks ago, and then he's back. For me, it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah, we all know Joshua is, as you put it, he second guesses himself. He overthinks it. He's too analytical. Even during the fight, he will be asking questions in the corner.
Is that a good thing, though, that he has Davison, who is a very analytical trainer, who will bombard you with information?
If he,
Because that's the
If,
catch.
if Ben Davison had taken over a year ago, or at least a year ago, maybe preferably a year and a half, 2 years ago, I would say that's a pretty good matchup because, as you say, Ben Davison is a very analytical man. Everything is, you know, he sees it, perceives it in his head, joins the dots, and then meticulously explains it to his fighter. Look at the work he did with Lee Wood; it's just amazing, you know.
And that's what Joshua needs in one sense.
Yes, yes. As far as Derek James goes, well, I'm someone who, I mean, I don't think they were great performances against Hellenius and Franklin, but I didn't expect them to be because it takes time to gel with a trainer. Now, it depends how much of an input James has had on this fight. Is it a case of...
Hard to know.
Yeah, if Davison's simply keeping him ticking over and Joshua has already done the homework with Derek James, I don't know what the case is. I'm only surmising. Okay, that's fair enough, because maybe he's done the technical work with James and the mental stuff will be covered by Davison. That's possible. Stylistically, Wallin, people forget how tall Wallin is. He's almost the same height as Joshua. He's not a small man, Otto Wallin. And even though he's a southpaw, don't forget Joshua fought Usyk twice, who's a southpaw. So you would think, you would hope that the work he did with Derek James for this fight is based on, okay, you're fighting a southpaw, you will take the lessons you learned from the best southpaw a lot, which is Usyk, and apply them to this fight. But as far as the training situation goes, it's difficult to say. Too many cooks do spoil the broth. I think that's true.
Yes.
And he's got to decide, you know, who am I with? Am I with Davison or am I with James? Long term.
100%. I think this fight will tell us a lot. I don't know. With Joshua, I will pick him in to win this fight. I think he is the better fighter. He is. There's no question about it. He is the better of the two. He's the more talented in every way. But Otto Wallin is not terrible. And he is the sort of opponent where if someone like a Joshua turns up and he's questioning, he's second guessing, he's overthinking, he's doing this, Otto Wallin could get the upset. I think he has the power to hurt him.
Yeah, and I think my prediction for this is Joshua will win on points. But I think Otto Wallin is even now is a little bit underrated. I think his skills, he's got some skills, you know.
He does.
And I think his jab's very good. I think
Southpaw left is very good.
Yeah, he can be a little bit too conservative, not firing enough punches, being a bit too cautious.
He moves well to the side.
Yeah. Yeah, his feet aren't bad, you know. I mean, he's a good all-round fighter. And
he's a fighter he doesn't probably look good on the eye test in terms of watching him fight, but in terms of what he actually does in there, he's not bad.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. He's decent. He's a genuine top 10 heavyweight. I ain't got a problem with someone putting him in the top 10 at all. I think he's probably better than other people who have better reputations.
You could definitely make the case for it.
Yeah.
I think Joshua will win.
Don't forget he's Swedish. So, and you know, people say, oh, he's just this Swedish guy. They immediately think, oh, Hellenius was Finnish, of course, but and they confuse the two, and so he doesn't quite get that.
Baddy Jack is Swedish as well, and no one says he's a bad fighter.
No.
You know, I think it's a very competitive fight. I think it's going to be good. I again be favouring Joshua to win, probably on points. It's gonna really tell us a lot about what direction he goes in with not just trainers, but with Deontay Wilder. Because I think I think if he gets rocked and struggles to do a decision, they may look to go to Hrgovic road. And I think that matchmaking with Otto Wallin isn't anything to do with Wilder. It's a case of it gives us options. If we struggle, but we get the win, we can just say, right, see you, Wilder, we want a world title. Tough. We're going to fight Hrgovic.
You know, I expect Joshua to win on points and for it not to be very exciting and not particularly impressive by Joshua.
Probably.
But sometimes, you know, if that's 3 in a row where he hasn't looked particularly impressive, at some point people are going to say, go on, I'll fight him. He's there for the taking. And if behind closed doors he's been doing his homework and working hard and doing all the usual things you have to do to be a great fighter, stay dedicated, live the life and so on, and learning from James and or Ben Davison, then he might have a surprise for people. I've never bought into the idea that AJ is physically or physiologically past his best.
No.
I think his problems are psychological.
But is that a harder thing to fix, though?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is.
Because with physical, it's either one or the, you know, there's not much you can do with physical, but if you know, you can sort of, if you know, say like you're looking at Vladimir Klitschko, your chin is a bit weak, but you can protect it. There's certain things you can do. If your brain is fragile, as in like a fragile mind, there's not really anything you can do. You have to look inside yourself, really. I know that's a bit of a kind of new age thing, but it really is the best way to say it. It's true. You need to have a good, hard, long look at yourself and look inward.
Well, we've just had an perfect example of it. At the weekend, we had
Jordan Gill,
who, you know, I didn't know he'd separated from his wife, and
neither did I.
Suicidal ideation, and he was drinking a lot and all that. Now, if you have some sort of trauma in your life and you come through it, and you sort of realize, you learn from it, and you realize. I mean, I absolutely despise Nietzsche's quote about, you know, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. A lot of bullshit. Because you know, you tell that to some quadriplegic in a car wreck, they're not stronger, you know, but they can't even, you know, cuddle their own kids anymore, you know. But if you come through great trauma, you can come out the other side. And if the penny drops, there can be a sort of, it's almost like a weight is lifted. And with Jordan Gill, I mean, it was so striking before that fight with Mick Conlan, how serene he was and how confident he was. This is a guy who'd been smashed to bits by Kiko Martinez. Only a year ago. And yet he was barely recognizable. I mean, I was absolutely stunned by that. Now, it is possible that Joshua could have a similar sort of, you know, you want to be new agey journey, you know, and come through it. But you've got to have the right people around you, because sometimes we need, and Joshua is a thinker, and he likes to think he's a bit of a philosopher and all this. And he's got to have the right people saying the right things to him, punching the right psychological buttons. He may have that or he may not. I don't know. But,
it's going to tell us. It's going to tell us a lot, this fight.
Yeah, it is. I don't think it'll be an exciting fight. I don't think it will necessarily be that impressive a performance by Joshua, but it could be a step in the right direction. And if he beats Wallin, that's, you know, a top 10 southpaw heavyweight that he's beaten. He'll have learned something, and that's what it's all about.
I think we could be in a situation where Joshua looks good against Valeen. It's not that he's not letting the shots go, but he's struggling to land because Valeen has a good defense. We get to the 12 rounds, he wins a comfy decision, and people are like, you see, he's finished. Not looking at the fact that actually he was doing stuff that he wasn't doing in the other fights. He just couldn't land it on this guy because Valeen has a good defense, and people will still write him off. Even though you might look, somebody you would look a bit like, he's actually letting that right hand go more. He's just not accurate with it, but at least he's actually, where before he wasn't doing it at all, he's doing it now. We could see something like that, but I think boxing fans are so reactionary. Unless it's a real kind of, you look amazing from start to finish. You're not that good, are you? It's like, well, sometimes it's, look at Deontay Wilder. You know, he looks garbage in most of his fights, but he lands the right hand, no one says anything.
Yeah. But this is part of being an elite at anything, athlete or boxer or whatever, or in whatever your chosen profession is, music, art, anything. You know, you don't give a fuck what other people think, because their opinions aren't important. And if someone gives you praise, and you say, you know, you might think, that's nice, you know, thank you very much. But if you take the praise to be consistent, morally consistent or psychologically consistent, you've got to take the criticism as well, because you don't know the person that's praising you. You don't know whether they're qualified to give you praise, and you don't know whether that person's qualified to give you criticism. So the best thing is to say, I don't care what you think. I'm doing things my way. You know, there's an old saying, be yourself, everyone else is taken. And that's a big part of getting on in life, no matter what you do.
I don't think enough people do that, though, regardless whether they're boxers or not.
Well, to be honest with you, Gman, it comes with age. You know, age does some quite soothing things to us, as you will discover when you get close to my age. But you know, you actually, your confidence grows, and you literally do become, as David Bowie once said, you become the person that you always should have been. Because even though when you look in the mirror, you go, "Fuck me, what happened there?" At the same time, inside you feel much better, because you've had life experience and you've learned a few things. And if you can do that when you're young, or younger, you know, 30's nothing, great, you got it made. but it's a very difficult thing to do when you're still quite young. You know,
believe me, there's certain things even in the last year I'm like, God, I wouldn't think I would have done that last year and stuff like that. Just even in the mindset years, like, wow.
Well, Muhammad Ali said, you know, the person who is the same at 50 that they were at 20 has not lived. Has not lived. And that's true.
But it's not lived. Yeah. You're spot on. I mean, if you have the same outlook 20 and 50, I mean, something's gone gravely amiss there. I think a lot of people do, unfortunately. A lot of people do. In terms of the fight, right? I'm going with Joshua. You are going with?
Joshua on points.
The card as a whole, it took us an hour to preview this whole card. That doesn't happen. 1 hour to preview every card because we want to talk about every fight.
Yeah.
Will you be watching it by other means, or is this worse hand in the pocket?
I never buy pay-per-view on principle.
So it's another means job.
I think so.
Okay.
I'm not going to miss this one.
But you're not going to miss this one. Now,
no, it's a good card. It's great. I mean, if I don't buy pay-per-view on principle, but I think that it's a good card. I think people, because I kind of despair. I don't want to go into old man rant here, but sometimes I get pissed off when I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, you know, Joshua ain't fighting Wilder. They should be fighting each other," and blah blah blah. Okay, maybe that'll happen next year. But right now, you live in an era where
would you rather have nothing? That's what I said. Would you rather have nothing or have something?
Well, every weekend there's boxing on different platforms. You can watch it using either legitimate means or other means, or I mean, you can. There's I go to a lot small hall shows, or I used to, not so much now, but post lockdown I haven't been. But before, I grew up going to live shows because there was none on the telly, and it's fantastic stuff. It's boxing. There's never been so much boxing out there for you to watch. And if you love the game and you're not just some sort of fanboy of a certain fighter, it's fabulous. It's brilliant. Love it. And don't forget, of course, on Boxing Day we've got the Inoue card as well. So how about that for a?
Can't wait for that. Can't wait for that, man.
Yeah.
That's
going to be
my guy.
It is my favourite fighter. Inoue is my favourite fighter.
Subram Matias just beats him for me.
Very good. Yeah, good call. Yeah, he's brilliant. But
he is proper boxing is gonna. I'm not gonna spoil it, but just wait and see. Wait and see.
For the Inoue.
No, for my guy Matias.
Oh, Matias. Okay.
It's gonna wait and see. Wait and see. But lads, we have gone over the hour. It's been a fun show. And we previewed a very fun show that I think will be, and I think it will deliver. Some shows on paper, they look good and they don't deliver. And there's other shows, it's really weird. You see some shows on paper, they look garbage and they end up being really, really fun. I think this show will deliver and then some. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. So that is the thoughts of Joe Stunner Boxing. Now, I will leave the floor to you before we finish up here and have a quick chat backstage. The channel, one last time. Joe Stunner Boxing. What do you do?
Preview fights, talk about boxing, reviews.
Gareth A. Davis impressions.
Yeah.
I took that in there, man.
Very bad Gareth A. Davis impressions. Actually, that was the real Gareth A. Davis. Well, you've got to have some sort of use for Gareth, haven't we? Making fun of him. He's not much use as a journalist. Can always melt him down for glue, I suppose. But yeah, Joe Stunner Boxing. I just talk boxing. Come and join me. Have a chat, leave your comments, watch the videos. You may agree with me or not agree with me. It doesn't matter. I'm respectful to you. If you're respectful to me, we're all fans. Let's just shoot and breathe. And let's get you to 3K before you know it. As I said, just Joe Stunner Boxing. That's all you need to type in. Great channel. I've had great fun having you on here as a guest for the last hour and 10 minutes. One final question, Gman. What? Sonny Edwards, Bam Rodriguez. Who wins? Bam Rodriguez by knockout. By knockout. I thought you were going to sit on the fence there, but obviously not. I've said it from the get-go. Bam Rodriguez by knockout. By knockout. Confident. Bam is special. Yeah, he is a good fighter. He is special. How about you? You asked me. Fence. Do you know what? I've dug my own grave here, haven't I? Because I haven't really say you prefer a prediction. My instinctive feeling is that Sonny, even though I've criticised Sonny so many times in the past, I think he might pinch it on points.
Think so? Away
I
from
don't
home.
know. I'm not. I'm going to have a think about this and probably rewatch a couple of fights. But I don't like. I've never liked Sonny Style. He sort of bounces up and down a lot, and there's a lot of wasted energy. And Bam is very methodical and precise, and yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Great fight though.
I can't wait for it, man. I might need to stay up for that one.
Yeah.
Last one from me. Weekend. Prograis, Haney.
I think Haney wins on points.
I'll give my pick tomorrow in midweek report.
Yeah,
I'm going to hold out for then. I'm going to hold out for then. Wait and see tomorrow's video, and you'll see my thoughts on Haney versus Prograis.
There was
for now.
Sorry,
oh, yeah.
just one. Just going to say about that fight. Was it Teddy Atlas was talking about it, and he said that he thinks everything's been set up for Haney to get the decision, but controversially, I think Haney will probably pinch it 116, 112, 115, 113.
Teddy Atlas still thinks that in order to be, a top heavyweight, you have to fight in America. So I don't really take a lot of what Atlas says these days. Has some knowledge, but some of it is at this point.
Yeah.
So,
I think he's more into UFC now, isn't he?
Yeah, he talks a bit about that now. So that's Teddy Atlas. I'll give my thoughts and pick on this fight tomorrow. But for now, lads, we'll leave you with that. I had a great show. I had a great fun here. It's been a good show. Yeah. You are the first guest of many. We will have another one on Wednesday next week.
Fantastic.
It's going to be culminating in a watch along for this, which I know people love the watch alongs. I love doing them. Yeah. And that one, I hope to God that was not 3 hours, because I felt like, someone was playing, I was playing Tetris or something like that I was literally in a thing and someone just left the screen on, was AFK and left me there, because by the time I got finished with the last one, I could barely walk. So hopefully it's not as hard as that one. But lads, I'll leave it there. Mate, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much. And to all of you in the chat as well, thank you.
And smash the old like button. I forgot to ask. You see that? You know I had a good guest on. Everyone's asked to smash the like button. I'm asking now. Peace, people. Go do it. Oh, man.